the latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. For decades, we are in the habit of depending on other people because we believe that people must come into the continent to protect us, to set us free because of the stories that they have created for us to believe in, that they are the people who can protect us. And for that matter, we cannot do anything for ourselves. So we have to continue to be waiting and depending on other people for our survival. But today, according to the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, we need to wake up from our sleep. That this is not the time for us to continue to be dependent on other people. European nations and all nations in the world, including Africa, that believe that other people must be the ones that will set us free. That we are now in Third World War. And this Third World War, or when we talk about war comes in different forms. Especially Africa, we still believe that we are not in Third World War. Everything that is happening in the world, we are all affected. So for that matter, we need to see how best we can depend on ourselves instead of depending on other people. Like our leaders keep signing deals, security pact with other people to come here and establish their bases, asking other people to come here to construct our roads for us. In return for what? Because these people will never do anything for us without a price. And that these people succeeded in making us depending so much on them to the point that whenever they have an opportunity to talk about something, they cite us as an example. We see how they always talk about Africa when crisis arises.
Many countries will have to abandon this habit to believe those who deceive them repeatedly. So the rules-based order is synonymous to a hegemon or the universal emperor. How does it meet the expectations from the multipolar world, as you put it? I think that we're not in the middle of this path, where at the beginning of this path it will be a historical age and a challenging one, because somebody will have to abandon its habits, to impose everything to everyone, to punish everyone. Somebody will have to abandon its habit to hide behind the bag of a daddy or uncle, and not to take responsibility for one's own actions. You need to abandon a lot of habits. And probably many countries will have to abandon this habit to believe those who deceive them repeatedly. So, I read a lot of about the trends of the multipolar world order. And currently, this world order is taking shape in an objective way because the rules of globalization, and this globalization was introduced, put to life and introduced by the Americans primarily, and it implied the freedom of market forces, fair play, fair competition, innocent till proven guilty principle, and most importantly, lifting all barriers in trade and economy everywhere. And as you can see, this globalization has come to an end, and even since Biden, we have been witnessing fragmentation, regionalization, and trade wars that the United States has been actively using as a tool to strengthen their positions and to seize and keep their previous positions. They have nothing to do with the globalization. This is new life, and it's not by chance that an increasing number of sub-regional entities start thinking about or even start working to ensure that they're safe from the diktat of dollar, for instance. Dollar has been turned into a tool of war. I do remember that under Joe Biden presidency, then candidate Donald Trump, the opposition candidate, chastised Biden and his team for destroying the reputation of the dollar, turning it into a tool of sanctions, and cutting trust to it. Donald Trump recalled under Biden the times when they shifted from the golden standard, and the Americans convinced the whole world that dollar is not something that the U.S. owns. It is the good of the whole humankind. It does not depend on the wishes of somebody and the desire to punish anyone. It is just the boon for the humanity. That's the way it was put it. And Donald Trump, during the Biden tenure in office, recalled the way Biden destroyed the reputation of the dollar. However, when he came to the White House, Donald Trump said that he would punish BRICS countries for not using the dollar. So it's not about the place that you occupies, about the things that you think and say. And BRICS is not the only entity that considers establishing independent settlement systems, payment systems, insurance and reinsurance models, establishing direct bank relations. It is talking about establishing its bank, the New Development Bank. Well, it is related to BRICS, but it is based on the Bretton Woods system, and these principles are no longer applicable. When President Lula once again came to power in Brazil, he proposed to CELAC, the Community of Latin American Countries, to do that, and as one of his initiatives, he proposed that CELAC should be in charge of the matters that we're talking about, namely to establish independent mechanisms of doing business, trade, investment, so that nobody could impact this in a negative way. Under Trump, the United States respond in a negative way to any attempts to use something else, and not the dollar. Is it the freedom of choice? It is not the freedom of choice. Therefore, the old globalization model is being destroyed due to objective reasons. We see the economic growth of China and India, and it outpaces the growth rate of the US. As per purchasing power parity, China ranks first, and this trend will continue. Therefore, objective economic trade indicators of the states, the ratio is changing, the balance is changing. In the IMF, the US has been artificially curbing this quota redistribution in order to keep the veto right that they still keep. And this doesn't change anything. If in the IMF and the World Bank, they would build all their actions building upon the real state of affairs in finance and the economy, there would long be no hegemony of the US in these institutions, in the Bretton Woods institutions. So let us not play the guessing game. Everybody anticipated the multipolar world where there will be a balance, but Donald Trump came, and in a year he showed what he's thinking about. The process is yet to begin. We're talking about a very long historic age, and we should be building upon objective trends. And the objective trends are that new, powerful hubs of economic growth are taking shape. These are centers of excellence, of high-tech and economic powerhouses. And with that comes political clout. Therefore, for instance, President Putin suggested holding the summit of five permanent Security Council members in 2020, but then the pandemic stood in the way. So it's hard to tell whether the leaders of the US, France, the UK were ready to do that. China spoke in favor of this initiative back in the day. And recently in one of my speeches, I recalled this proposal, and in principle we always stand for having meaningful, constructive discussions, meetings. However, we can hardly expect that our French and German and British colleagues would show a reasonable approach. In their statements, in their public addresses, well, at least the current leaders, in Paris, in London, in Berlin, in Brussels, they make such statements. And it is not possible to deviate from that without losing your face completely, and without losing the trust of your voters, without self-exposure as people that do not care about the future of their country. But at the same time, there are other four, for instance, G20. Virtually all BRICS members are present there. There is the G7 Western group. And by the way, in G20 there are 10 countries in favor of BRICS, 10 countries in favor of G7. And there are also events where representatives of great powers turn out to be in one place at one time, and in the majority of cases they use it, if they are responsible leaders, they use it in order to compare notes, in order to have an unofficial conversation. Especially, I believe it is important at a time when everything changes overnight. Therefore, all the developments that we're witnessing currently, well, somebody says, actually this is World War III, it's just that we do not understand that currently that's the way the global wars go. But it's not up for us to judge, it's up for historians. Most importantly for us, for people who, a nation who lived through a great number of wars in its history, and especially the tragedy of World War II and the Great Patriotic War. For us, the main criteria is the life of people, so that they would not be put at risk. I do not know whether you've heard it or not. It is our genetic inherent quality that is challenged by somebody such as Kaya Kallas. She said that over the past 100 years, Russia attacked various countries 19 times, and it attacked several countries several times. And she added, let alone Africa, that is, without counting Africa. Actually, I'm pretty calm when there are such people in European countries. We still have hope that the peoples of the European countries that are historically civilized, educated people, they would know the value of such leaders. And when such leaders claim to be at the head of a pole in a multipolar world, I believe that they will see their merit.
They always make it look as if Africa will be the continent that will suffer the most. Even when this war began, we heard what the African Union chairperson went and said, that things will affect us the more. We are the people that will suffer. We heard our leaders talking, crying that if nothing is done, it is Africa that will suffer the most. Yet we are seeing that this war that is waging, the people who even believe in themselves that they have everything, they are the superpower, they are even suffering. Their countries are crying. We saw the demonstrations across the United States of America about cost of living. We haven't had that in Africa, even though things are expensive. So we need to understand that this is no longer the era of us waiting for people to come here and do anything for us. Look at the oil crisis. Who is saving us now? Dangote. But when Dangote brought this oil, we are the people who also help European nations to tell the world that it is not their standard. And we make sure we sign deals with these people to make sure everything that they have, they benefit. Africans are not thinking about how to empower themselves. We are always looking at what other people will come into the continent to do for us. That is the difference between the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso and the leaders that we have in the democratic elected countries. Those in the democratic elected countries believe that we need to have investors, partners from the West to come into the continent to do something for us. But Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are empowering their youth, empowering the citizens to make sure they join in the development of their countries, not waiting for people to come into the continent, claiming that they are supporting them, and we know at the end of the day the deals that we struck with them, we get like 6, 7, highest 10, 11% out of the total. So we see that what people claim they come here to do and we keep depending on them isn't helping us. And in this new world, we need to understand that we have to build ourselves. We have to empower ourselves. We have to make sure we change the old way of doing things. We cannot continue to be doing the same thing expecting different results. And that is when we need to understand that the power of the African lies in the African. And we need to understand also that the African has the ability to do everything that we need. The time of depending on other people for survival must be a thing of the past. Because even the people we depend so much on them, we are seeing what they are going through. AU has announced that they have just a few days left of oil to empower their jets. So at the end of the day, we understand that even the people who said they are world powers isn't the way we think they are. They say things, but underground we don't know who they are. And we know very well that people take everything from the continent to empower themselves. And at the end of the day, we are still sitting here looking at the same people coming into the continent, taking all the resources. And then we sit there and claim that they have to give us aid. How can people who come here to carry the resources be the ones to give us aid again? So we need to wake up and fight like the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are doing to give ourselves sovereignty, to empower the African, instead of us sitting here depending on other people to come and set us free, pretending they are the ones who have finished solving their problems. And for that matter, they have to come back into Africa to empower us, to protect us. We are not handicapped. So that lazy mentality in us, we need to stop it and start building ourselves, because we have all that it takes to make everything that we need come to pass. Because the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are showing us the way. United we stand, divided we fall. And united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world, in Europe and in Russia.